You're watching UATV News. My name is Inna Kosinska. Good evening. Reinforcement of the defense industry of Ukraine against the background of growing military threat from Russia. This is how the military comment on personal changes in the armed forces. This week, President Volodymyr Zelensky dismissed Ruslan Humchak from the post of Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces. Besides, Chief of the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Commander of the Airborne Assault Forces and Commander of the Joint Forces Operation have also lost their posts.
The security situation in the country is getting worse. As we know, military exercises of the aggressor country, the Russian Federation, are expected. And in this situation, the president wants to see young staff, who during the war, being in a division battalion, later got to the level of the commander of the operational command. That is, they gained experience of war.
Officers of the Security Service of Ukraine have detained an agent of the Russian military intelligence. According to the investigation data, a resident of the Cherkasy region of Ukraine was recruited on the territory of Russia. He had to obtain secret information about one of the local warehouses of artillery ammunition. Moreover, he even tried to make one of the Ukrainian military his accomplice.
He was detained at once, receiving the classified information about the activities of one of the artillery depots in the region. The detainee has been informed about suspicion under the first part of Article 111 of the Criminal Code of Ukraine. This is high treason. The issue of choosing a preventive measure is being studied.
Turning the occupied Crimea into overwhelming weight for Russia. This is the result that the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, Dmytro Kuleba, expects from the Crimean Platform summit to be held on August 23rd. 28 states and international organizations have already confirmed their participation in it. And they have almost completed the approval of the Crimean Declaration, a document that should be presented at the end of the summit.
This
result would allow us to say that we've managed to form the core of the international coalition for the liberation of Crimea, although one has no idea how powerful and systematic the Russian counteraction is. They work in every capital, in every country, trying to persuade a state to refuse from participation in the Crimean Platform. I emphasize that the summit will not be a one-time event. It will be a regular work on many levels. Crimea has already become a complicated affair for Russia, and the Crimean Platform will turn it into an unbearable cargo.
Georgia will introduce fines for damaging the flag of the European Union. The parliament of the country considers this initiative to be another evidence of irreversibility of European integration. My colleagues know more about what Tbilisi is doing to join the European Union and how Ukraine is helping Georgia in this process.
The Pride March was held in the Georgian capital Tbilisi in support of the LGBT+ community. Opponents of this action held their event as well. It all ended with beating of journalists and death of the cameraman. Organizers of the Pride March were forced to cancel their event. 2 days later, opponents of the action lowered and burned the flag of the European Union near the Georgian parliament. The burning of the EU symbol was called a barbarism in Brussels. Charles Michel, president of the European Council, went to Batumi to understand the situation. Georgian President Salome Zurabishvili was able to convince him of invariability of support for European integration in Georgia.
Today is a very important day for Georgia's European future. Thank you, President of the European Council, for taking part in this. More EU in Georgia is a strong message for our progress and our development, a message that remains unchanged despite all challenges.
Despite these problems, the European Union continues its assistance to Tbilisi to develop the country's legal system.
There were some successes. For instance, there was several laws passed about integration of minorities, which was not so easy, especially if you understand the Georgian context very well, because Georgia is a conservative Orthodox country, and it was not so easy for Parliament to pass this law. So it was passed quite a long time ago, but the implementation part of this law is very difficult.
In Batumi, both Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and Moldovan President Maia Sandu spoke about their country's desire to become EU members. The leaders met for the first time in a format of the associated trio.
The plans of our state, Ukraine, Georgia and Moldova, are focused on the goal. This is obtaining membership in the European Union. This is why the associated trio was created this year. This is not an alternative to Eastern Partnership. This is the most advanced part of the Eastern Partnership, which desires, works and is ready for more in relations with the European Union.
Moreover, the three presidents have signed the Batumi Declaration. In the document, the countries guarantee each other assistance in implementing the reforms necessary for association with the EU. And joining the European Union was called the only future for the three states.
I think this new format is very important for three countries because, as you know, the Eastern Partnership in classical sense collapsed, especially after Belarus basically withdrawn from this format, and as you know, Armenia and Azerbaijan are not so keen to join European integration. So that's why I think it's very highly important that these three countries now establish this associated trio, which will enable them to work together and also to work with the European partners to get much closer to the European Union.
The associated trio will have the opportunity to meet with the EU leadership at the Eastern Partnership Summit in December. At this meeting, leaders of Ukraine, Georgia and Moldova want to hear facts about the prospects of the three countries' membership in the EU. Brussels said that by December they will prepare an investment package for the countries of the Eastern Partnership in the amount of more than 2 billion euros to promote reforms. Reported by Vadim Kramer, Artem Golub and Karina Samokhvalova, UATV News.
The city of Avdiivka in eastern Ukrainian Donetsk region celebrates 7 years since liberation from Russia-backed illegal armed groups. The military operation began on July 29 in 2014. Ukrainian forces managed to withstand the enemy fire and enter the city. They took under control the buildings of the local council and police. The memorial was later erected on the battle site. Today, participants of the battle residents of the city came to the memorial to commemorate the fallen. President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, who was also present during the event, said that only returning to Ukraine, Avdiivka regained its right for a peaceful future.
Авдіївка стала 10-тим за рахунком містом Донецької області, яке було
Avdiivka became the 10th city of the Donetsk region liberated by Ukrainian army back then. It is an important city like Mariupol, Slavyansk, Kramatorsk and others. The normal life here became possible only under a blue and yellow Ukrainian flag. For a long time, Avdiivka remained one of the hottest spots along the front line. Until now, in spite of the agreements, explosions and shelling continues in the Avdiivka industrial zone. The city is now on the firing line. Nevertheless, it has chosen the line of freedom. The line of freedom and the line of our country.
Ukraine, Poland and the European Commission will appeal the certification of Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline. This was stated by head of the company operating the gas transportation system of Ukraine, Serhiy Makuhon. He also noted that restrictions may be imposed on the gas pipeline prior to launch. In particular, the European Commission can do it. Makuhon stressed that according to the optimistic scenario, the gas pipeline will never work. To remind, the construction of Nord Stream 2, which will allow Russia not to use the Ukrainian gas transportation system, is almost over.
The most negative scenario for us is that it will be certified this year. But in this case, it will be appealed by the European Commission, the Polish government, our government at once. And there may be some restrictions, for example, on its use. And the optimistic scenario for us is that it never works.
Problems in the Holos parliamentary party. During the political congress, 7 MPs of Ukraine left its ranks. The statement was written by Deputy Chairman of the party, Yaroslav Yurchyshin. He is among those who accuse party leader Kira Rudik of usurping power. Despite this, supporters re-elected her as the head of the political party. Problems started on July 16th. Then half of the parliamentary faction members expressed no confidence to its leader, Yaroslav Zhelezniak, and announced their intention to create a separate group in the parliament, calling it Justice.
The faction remains in the same composition. Ukrainian legislation demands this, but a group called Justice has been created within the faction. It actively cooperates and presents alternative bills, and there will be no Golos party during the next parliamentary elections. We are talking about real situation. There is no person capable of becoming a leader. During the elections in 2019, we all signed a written commitment that if we leave the party, we automatically vacate the MP seats. If colleagues give up on their mandates, fulfilling their promise, then new people will come to the parliament, and they will continue to work in the Verkhovna Rada, in the Holos faction.
Good roads, new schools and modern hospitals. After the decentralization reform, each territorial community in Ukraine can implement the most ambitious projects that make their lives of its residents better. During the Ukraine 30 Forum, representatives of local governments shared their success stories.
Medicine is one of the spheres that can be developed actively due to the decentralization reform. This was stated by the Minister of Health of Ukraine, Viktor Leshko. And with the correct allocation of budget funds, communities have the opportunity to modernize and create specialized hospitals, earn more and raise the salaries of doctors.
Міністерство охорони здоров'я.
The Ministry of Health prepares the state budget, which includes a program of medical guarantees. The medical assurance program pays for a service at these hospitals. New equipment will come to the hospitals, which will allow contracting for new packages. New packages are additional funding. Additional funding means more taxes to the territorial community.
An example of a successful investment in medicine is the Donetsk community in Sumy region. In 2018, the local government took over the district hospital. After a large-scale modernization, it takes more patients.
For 3 years, we have been investing a lot in equipment, the repair of branches, and everything else. We have the example of one of the departments, the maternity ward. We made high-quality, European-level repairs, procured the up-to-date equipment. Last year, we had 264 women in labor. Girls from Kyiv, Zaporizhia, Kharkiv and other regional centers have already come to us.
In addition to funds from their own budgets, communities can count on money from the state in the form of subventions. This tool is actively used to implement projects of education and sport infrastructure.
У 2020 році
In 2020, we've reconstructed and built 119 schools. We are building different stadiums now. Last year, the figure was 99 stadiums. We are not saying that these are just small stadiums near schools or in some community. We really have big projects. In Kryvyi Rih, for instance, there was reconstruction of a large central stadium. We make a water arena in Ternopil as well.
Another important part of state assistance for regional development is the repair and construction of new roads. In 2020, 4,000 kilometers of national roads and 2,500 kilometers of local roads were repaired. They say in President office that new infrastructure will make communities and their ties stronger. Reported by Yulia Krychkova, UATV News.
To complete the reform, which is already called the most successful in Ukraine, the topic of the decentralization was also discussed in Odesa by mayors of Ukrainian cities and heads of the United Territorial Communities within the frameworks of the 16th Municipal Forum. Chairman of the Verkhovna Rada Dmytro Razumkov and Special Envoy of the German government for reforms of Ukraine, George Milbred, are pleased with the progress in the pace of decentralization reform. But in order for local self-governments to work not only on paper, amendments will have to be made to a number of laws.
Compared with other European countries in the same situation as you were very courageous. You opted for bigger units, and I think that is the right decision because of demography and technological developments. But reorganization of the territory is a precondition for viable local democracy. Something else has to be added. Therefore, you have to adapt the legal provision to the new situation and to the new development and to the strengthening of local democracy.
We really need to make sure that the decentralization reform does not take place on paper, but is an effective mechanism in the development of our state. And here we need to take into account the state position, the position of local authorities, and the position related to resources which are available today and which can be given to the local level.
The incidence of coronavirus has been growing for several days in a row in Ukraine. According to the latest data from the Ministry of Health, 962 new cases of the disease have been identified as of July 30. Kyiv region is still a leader. They say in the ministry that the state quarantine will continue, as the previous restrictions were supposed to work until August 31st. KYIV artists are choosing a place for their museum. The Center for Contemporary Art should become a point of attraction for young artists in the country and provide them with space for contemporary exhibitions. The location of the new museum is still unknown. The expert group has already assessed 19 places. Our journalists have also joined the group.
Shopping malls, abandoned bus stations, cinemas, factories, and even a pre-trial detention facility. Specialists in various fields from art to IT have inspected 19 locations in the capital, in which, in their opinion, there are all conditions to create the first museum of contemporary art in Ukraine.
I have two absolute favorites, the bus depot we saw and the old shopping mall. I understand that the bus depot is very far away, but I'm sure that such a magnet as a museum of contemporary art, the only one in the country, is able to pull out this area, make it more touristy, more vibrant.
Choosing a place is not as easy as it might seem at first glance. After all, the building itself should not only be beautiful but also safe and equipped with everything one needs.
It has a strong and very extensive infrastructure, all the engineering is well done here, and air conditioning as well. There are different spaces here, this is free planning.
The initiators of the project are sure that the best place for the future museum is the one chosen by the residents of Kyiv.
We stimulate discussion. We now want to make a vote for Kyiv residents to choose between these locations, 19 of them, and we will talk about the opportunities that open up for cities, for districts, if there is a museum of contemporary art. We continue to work together because the Department of Culture of the Kyiv City State Administration is our partner. They are very interested in Kyiv finally becoming the world capital.
The Museum of Contemporary Art will display not only collections of contemporary masters. In addition to the exhibition space, there will be a cinema, a library, workshops, games, and inclusive education zones for children. Reported by Avdiivka and Vlada Tsurkan, UATV News.
In the meantime, today athletes compete for 21 sets of medals at the Olympic Games. Among them are 21 Ukrainians. Olena Kostevich failed to reach the finals of the air pistol shooting from 25 meters. Also, in the quarterfinals, the Ukrainian fencing team lost to China and dropped out of the further struggle for medals. Judoka Yakiv Hamo was defeated by the Japanese and later lost a chance for bronze. After losing the repechage round, to remind, the Ukrainian team has already got 4 bronze medals. That's all for this hour. More updates on our official website, YouTube, Twitter and Facebook pages. Thank you for staying with the UATV channel. Goodbye.